Wow. Just listen to that statement for a second. It sounds like something out of a history book, right? Like from another century. But that quote sent a massive shockwave across the globe, and it's rooted in some very modern ambitions. So let's unpack what's really behind this. Today, we're diving into a story that on the surface might seem like it's just about a piece of land, but it's about so much more. We're talking about power, about critical resources, and, maybe even about the shifting rules that are supposed to govern our world. This is a geopolitical gamble with some enormous stakes. So here's how we're going to break this down. We're going to follow the ripple effect, starting with the offer that kicked this all off. Then we'll look at how everyone reacted, from Greenland itself to its closest allies. And finally, we'll ask what this all means for the bigger picture, for the international order.
Okay, so first up, the offer itself. I mean, where did this idea even come from? It kind of feels like it came out of nowhere. But to really get it, we've got to look at the motivations that have been driving American interest in this part of the world for a long time.
Yeah, this was definitely not some sudden whim. For Washington, Greenland is a huge piece on the global chessboard. Militarily, it's sitting right on the shortest missile route between Russia and North America. Economically, it holds a treasure trove of rare earth minerals, the stuff that powers, well, everything from our phones to our defense systems. And strategically, it's about boxing out rivals, preventing China or Russia from getting a stronger foothold in the Arctic. And get this, it's not even the first time. Way back in 1946, the U.S. quietly offered to buy the island for $100 million.
So, the proposition is out there, just hanging in the air. How did the people most directly affected respond? Well, you can probably guess.
Greenland's answer came back fast, and it was a hard no. The Prime Minister's words are so powerful because he completely reframes the whole conversation. This isn't a real estate deal. For the people of Greenland, this is an existential issue. It's tied directly to their identity and their long, hard fight for self-determination. And then you have Denmark, which handles Greenland's foreign policy. The message from Copenhagen was just as blunt. The Danish Prime Minister basically said the whole idea was absurd and shut it down completely. She reminded the world that, countries don't just go around annexing other countries these days. The rejection was absolute.
And this quote, this really brings it all down to the human level. Forget the high-level diplomacy for a second. This is the reality on the ground. For Maya Zialuk and so many other Inuit residents, this isn't some abstract chess game. It's a painful reminder of a colonial past and a defiant statement about their right to decide their own future.
Okay, so that shock wave we talked about, it didn't just stop in Greenland and Denmark. It immediately traveled south, creating a deep sense of unease in America's closest neighbor and ally, Canada.
To understand why Canada was so anxious, you really have to talk about economics. A staggering 70% of all Canadian exports go to just one country, the United States. That massive economic dependency creates a structural vulnerability that quietly shapes every single interaction between them.
Now, Canadian leaders weren't necessarily expecting an invasion, but they were watching a new American willingness to use its muscle elsewhere. For Canada, the more immediate and much more realistic fear is economic coercion. The threat of new tariffs or of messing with their big trade deal is a powerful non-military lever that Washington can pull anytime it wants.
And that's the long-term danger. As experts point out, when you're that dependent, you can find yourself making concession after concession just to maintain stability. And over time, that slowly chips away at your nation's ability to make its own independent choices. It erodes your real sovereignty, even if it all looks the same on paper.
So from America's northern border, the ripple widens. It crosses the Atlantic and puts key European allies in an incredibly difficult and, delicate position.
You can just picture European leaders walking a diplomatic tightrope. On one hand, they have to show solidarity with Denmark. It's a fellow EU and NATO member, and they did. But on the other hand, they're really wary of antagonizing Washington, their most powerful ally. Still, there was pushback. There were quiet talks in the EU about economic countermeasures, while the UK even floated deploying a NATO mission. As the French President Macron put it, pretty simply, this just isn't how allies are supposed to treat each other.
This statement from a top German official really captures the core of the European position. The message is crystal clear. The Arctic is supposed to be a place where we cooperate within the alliance, not a place where we create conflict. Respecting international law isn't optional, not even among friends.
So, with the door slammed shut on a simple purchase, what are the actual paths the United States could take to get what it wants, to get control of Greenland?
Well, analysts have mapped out 4 main possibilities. First, the direct approach, buy it. As we've seen, that's a non-starter. So the second option is more subtle, woo it. This is the long game.
using investment, aid, and diplomacy to encourage an independence movement in Greenland that would be friendly to the US. This is seen as plausible. Third, and maybe the most realistic path, is to use treaties to expand the existing 1951 defense agreement that already gives the US extensive military rights there. And finally, there's the most extreme option: invade. I know it sounds crazy and it would shatter NATO, but in today's world, analysts say you can't dismiss it entirely.
So, let's pull back one last time for the big picture. Why does this whole standoff over a massive, sparsely populated island actually matter to the rest of the world?
Because this isn't really just about Greenland. It's a test case. For over 70 years, the world has operated, at least in theory, on a set of rules: respect for sovereignty, international law. This whole episode is seen as a symptom of a global shift away from that system, toward a more transactional, might makes right era of politics.
This frank admission from a senior European diplomat is incredibly telling. It speaks to a growing fear that the old playbook is just obsolete. The basic assumption that all the major powers will play by the same set of rules is now being openly questioned at the highest levels.
And that leaves us with this final critical question. The entire international system we have was built on the idea that even the most powerful nations are bound by law. If that foundation starts to crack, it forces all of us to ask, what comes next? And who gets to write the new rules? It's a question that echoes far, far beyond the icy shores of Greenland.